What's going on? Today we're going to be talking about drain plugs in aluminum oil pans and what to do when they get stripped out. So in this particular case, I bought this 2008 Raptor 700R, and I'm going through the four-wheeler looking at different things for maintenance, your general maintenance. You want to check your oil, look over your pads, make sure your coolant is good, all your general stuff. And what I was doing is changing my oil, among other things, and I noticed, oh shit, my plug will not go back into my oil pan. So the threads on the aluminum pan here were no longer there. They're non-existent. So how do you fix that? Well, there's a few different methods. I guess the best one would be to, have a TIG welder or MIG. I guess it doesn't really matter, but some form of aluminum welding. Excuse me. And you can weld this entire hole shut. You'll take a drill bit, you'll drill into it, clean out that hole to the size that you need, and then use a tap like that. Tap it out and put your plug back in. But not everyone has a welder or access to one. Maybe your buddy has one, but you don't want to bother them. Whatever the case may be. So your other option here is to get a helicoil kit. This particular one is fix a thread, whatever is at AutoZone. And you want to pick one of those guys up. They will have, where'd it go? They will have a metal collar. Now there's two different types of helicoil thread, fix a thread, whatever you want to call. This is going to be the better kind. It's going to be a metal one, and it's one piece. It has, threads on the inside and threads on the outside. And then you notice it also has some knurling there on the threads. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So pretty much what you'll do is almost the same deal I was talking about with welding. What you'll actually do is you'll open up your hole here to the appropriate size. They usually list it, on the instructions and everything, what size drill bit you should be using, along with your tap. They come in all kinds of different sizes. Use the correct one. So you'll drill out your hole, so it'll no longer be threads in there. You'll take your tap, you can put it into the bottom of your pan, and you'll turn it. So, obviously you're not going to do that by hand, but use a wrench, the correct size socket, throw it on the end of this guy, keep it as level as you can, up and down and horizontally. That way your plugs are going to seat correctly with your mating surface here once you're finished. So to begin the process, like I said, you drill in, you take your tap, and you'll start getting your threads. But if you're thinking about it, when you start doing this, you're going to get all kinds of shavings, aluminum shavings everywhere. To avoid that, there's an old trick to take a tube of grease. It doesn't matter really what grease it is. You just need some grease. So you take your tap, you dunk it down in your grease, and you want to have a generous, God, I can't talk, generous amount of grease on here. And the more the better, pretty much. You can't really overdo it. Unless you have big globs, going into your case. You don't want that, but you'll cover this guy up with grease. You can see here is all the grease that I was using. There's tons of metal shavings in there. All over the place. And that's good. That's what you want. That grease will trap all of your metal shavings and keep them out of your case here. Now, there may be one or two shavings or something of that effect, left in your case. That's what you have an oil filter for. As long as they're not too big, they're not going to block any oil passages or hurt any bearings. Your oil filter will catch them. So, you just change your oil, an hour or two after you ride. Take the four-wheeler out, ride it for an hour or two. It'll clear out all the oil, clear out all the passages and everything in the engine, catch it in your oil filter, change your oil. You won't have a problem. Just be careful and take note of that. Take your time. When I put the tap into the pan itself, typically what I'll do is I'll start it, get it started. I'll go, 2 full rotations to the right to screw towards the case. And then I'll do 1 full rotation backwards. That'll clean your threads up that you just did. And you can go another, turn or two and then pull it out. And you're going to notice that there's a lot of metal shavings that are trapped in between these threads here. So you'll take it, you'll wipe it off, clean it out, load it up again with some new grease. Make sure there's no shavings on there before you put it back in your grease, obviously. And then put it back in your case, continue the process until you have enough threads cut out in your case here for your new collar. And the collars do come in different sizes, like I said. So use the appropriate one for your bolt. You can do that by just taking the collar, comparing it to your bolt size. I would not use this one because it's not long enough for this particular bolt. I did put the second longest one in there. That came in the kit. So you get this real short guy, get a longer one, and then I use the intermediate one, the middle one. So once you have your collar, well, actually back up a second here. You'll want to, once you have your whole, cut with new threads, you want to get all the grease and all the extra shavings and everything that may have fallen inside your case. So you'll need a flashlight. Take a flashlight, any old flashlight. You look in here and see, where you have any additional shavings that may have fallen down in any of these passages. And you'll want to get them out. So best way to do that is take a pick like this. I prefer one like this. That would be a 45-degree angle, so you can kind of, get it down in there and angle it around the hole. And you'll take your pick, you'll put it down your grease, get a glob of grease, put on your pick. Come in here and you'll kind of fish out any of the ones that you may have seen, the shavings that you've seen, and just get rid of them on your towel. So once you have all your shavings cleaned out of there, you're still going to have a bunch of grease left over in this hole. You don't want to leave that there because your next step will be to put your thread locker onto that collar and insert the collar. So what you want to do is take some brake cleaner and get your towel, shop rag, whatever you might have, and put it in here and clean out the grease that's in the threads that you just cut. And once you have all the threads and everything cleaned up, I actually use just like a little bit of compressed air, and I did that because I knew that there was not any shavings inside the case here. On the bottom of this Raptor case, it's flat on the bottom and on the left-hand side. And over on the right-hand side, there's really no crevice that's close to where your threads are. So I knew that there wasn't any extra shavings. So I took, the air gun, took the nozzle, sprayed all of the threads out, wiped it clean again with a rag, and everything was nice and dry. It wasn't greasy for your next step, which is, like I said, you take your collar, you just load it up, so it's basically just dripping with your thread locker. You'll take it, you can put on the end of your pinky like I did. As you can see, I already have mine installed. But you'll take it, put it on your pinky, you'll screw the collar into place, and you should not have any resistance whatsoever. If you have a nice cut on your threads, it'll go straight in and you won't have an issue. So you got your thread locker on there, you've screwed your collar into place. You want to make sure that it is flush with your mounting surface here, which is basically where your bolt is going to stop. As long as you've tapped your thread straight, when you put your bolt in, it'll seat flat around here. If not, you want to get it as close as you can, but if it's not perfect, which is common, this one isn't 100% perfect. But what I'm going to do is actually get an O-ring, or you could actually use ATV. You could use RTV and put some on the base of your plug here, so that when you put it in, you're not going to have any leaks or anything like that. Actually, you know what? I forgot a step here. You're going to take your collar, the knurling that you saw earlier. You take your tool here, your punch tool. You stick it into the collar, and you're going to hit the back of it with a hammer. And now you don't want to like hulk out and, you know, punch a hole through your friggin' block or anything. But you want to tap it a few times fairly lightly, just to get a feel for, you know, how much pressure is actually required. But what that's going to do is the flange that is on this will spread that collar out, and it's going to force that knurling into your base metal, your aluminum in your pan, and that's going to force it to lock in place. So there's two methods of, you know, locking this and securing it in place. I guess it would be kind of redundant to have your thread locker, but you don't want to have an issue. You want to make sure that it's fully seated in place and it's never going to be a problem, so you don't have to do this crap again. So that's pretty much how you are going to take care of your stripped oil plug thread.